Hello, welcome back to Story Time. Today I'm here with Gens, and my name's Rosemary, and I'm here with Gens. So, is there anything, Gens, today that you would like to tell people about yourself?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So it's almost like in life, sometimes we come in with experiences that feel so familiar. Even when we're children and grow up to be teenagers and whatnot. Um, whether it's our family or friends or things we come along the way and experience the different sides to that, it sort of opens up this familiarity. Uh, and I would say when I was a kid, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I took a trip to New York City with my father. It was a camping trip. We would go to the city and stay outside of it,
Hmm.
maybe 45 minutes out, um, and it was sort of like a yeah, it was an experience that is hard to describe in and of itself. Basically, he reacted out of his anger and lashed out at me. And there was an accident that we had in the tent when I was a kid, and I ended up getting sort of a like hit in the head, in the left side of my head. And I remember the incident, what happened, and being driven to the hospital. And I remember them putting staples in and sitting down. I sat down next to this Jewish man, and he was so nice. He was talking. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remembered one thing that he said is, there's a reason for everything. And when I got older, I was like, it's interesting. Why would he say? Why would he say that there was a reason for my suffering? And anyways, that was like a start of an experience of which I can go on about. You know, uh, I know that's really hefty thing to jump into. I know,
Okay.
as far as sharing things about, yeah.
Okay, so
um,
well,
yeah,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, let's start off with then, like, all right, through your experience, and again, that is something that you're suffering, and it makes you turn around and think. But have you had a defining moment that you would say that you became more? Oh, 'cause a lot of people in the community are saying they're awake, and we have these waves of people coming in. Have you had a defining moment that you've been spiritually awakened or aware, or was it something that you just kind of knew you didn't fit in when you were growing up?
It was like a little mix of that. It was like I was a kid. I would get along with a lot of the other groups. I loved sports. I loved doing a bunch of things with different people, and people just sort of just accepted me for who I was in any group. Maybe here and there I might have some conflict, but I went through church as a child, and then didn't really you know see or hear or really understand what was going on or what
Hmm.
it is. And I wouldn't say until I was 14, 15, 16, um, that I started things started to open up essentially for me. I what Meanwhile, while I was opening up the church body in a sense, I was also being pulled into the parasocial and the parapsychology and basically the paranormal community. And um, essentially, at that time, there were people from both of those bodies of study or field that were saying the same things about me. They were saying uh, that I was given something or I have something in particular, and people from both the occult were saying, but I never really understood what that meant at the time. There was there's a psychic. Her name is Stephanie. I can't remember her last name right off the bat, but she lives down south in southern United States, and I met her when I was around that age, and a family friend of mine had actually known her for a while, and she said, "Oh, hey, you should talk to a friend of mine." So I did, and she, she knew about family lineage. She knew about this and that, and without having prior knowledge to it. So I knew that she was who she said she was, and that she actually helped people and whatnot. And that the climax of what she said to me and what she told me was starting to show itself, in different areas of my life, whether it was school, people, or church, or the occult, or that side to it, the paranormal, the parapsychology. It was manifesting in all these different areas. And I would say the one moment that really brought me to it was that I went to Buffalo, New York. It's a sort of a struggling city. It's sort of a struggling city in New York, and
yes, I'm well familiar with.
yeah. I love it. The community is great, and it's next to Lake Erie. Like, people are lovely. I suppose it's just like another part of the world. But yeah. Anyways, when I was 15, I went to pay for. It was basically like your classic like ghost hunt that you'd see like Zach Bagans or these guys do, and the folks I went with were a bit older. It was family essentially that and friends that helped me to be able to get into the Buffalo Central Terminal. It's an old terminal that the city used to use when trains were more of like a relevant use of transportation and whatnot. Anyways, yeah. We paid like 50. It was $50 or $55 for like an overnight. It was just like a 4 or 5 hour thing from I think it was like midnight to 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, something like that. So we had the IR cameras, we had the thermal, imaging, infrared, and
nice.
we had all of that stuff. It was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Anyways, we were given a tour ahead of time. We had to wear masks, it's the asbestos, and they used to build buildings. So we had to deal with the masks, and there was a second floor, a control room where somebody, a gentleman or a lady would be sitting, and they would be sort of switching the tracks so the trains would be able to traverse on the other track. And I went down there to check out the control rooms, and I heard someone say my name right next to me. And I look over, and of course, there's nobody there. And I stopped, and I was like, huh. I didn't really freak out at first, but I was like, I just heard that. I know I heard that. And so I went back and I told her, and they're like, oh, I don't think much. And the rest of the night went, and we had people had some experiences and whatnot. But the greatest thing that was to me is that when we went on the recordings, when we went on studio, and we clipped that, in the clip, I heard the same exact voice on the recorder as I did. So I was like, oh yeah, that was.
She got some good that was like
right there. Yeah. So I wasn't quite sure at that time what it was, but over the years, I found out. Some say it's just like they'll say talking to the dead, or they'll say, oh, some people have the gift. Some people will say it's the call of the dragon. But like, I've looked throughout history and seen what like other prominent figures have said about what that contact is or what it represents. And that's sort of where I'm that's sort of like my main focus is like that, specifically in all of the different areas sort of that we experience in life. It's just that contact that we experience that is that is outside of our experience, that is like perhaps it's just like a different experience for us outside of this time or outside of this place, and that the familiarity would like sort of like help us remember that in a way. Or that's the way that I've like at least seen it throughout my life, throughout the years. It's just like remembering and becoming familiar with some of those things.
So do you, we're talking about it, do you have more experiences with spirits? Do you talk with them, or at least through that veil or that energy? I know there's different types of, because you have like residual hauntings, which is something like recorded, stuck in a timestamp in there. But do you interact with spirits in any way?
There were years that I did. I basically did like business. Like, people would invite us over to their business or their homes, and we would do like cleansings essentially for people. It would be it's a mix of it would be a mix of a prayer and a ritualistic form to like remove residual energy in people's homes. Like if people have, struggles or issues with that. I did stuff for the church, and I did stuff with I did like shamanistic stuff. This is something that's opening up recently, but like ayahuasca and like psilocybin, essentially, like those natural compounds to our earth and to us, to our anatomy, it unlocks our neurotransmitters in our brain to be able to computate or process or whatever, or understand sort of these experiences in a way. So it's like a mixture of the burning of knowledge, and then the rejuvenation of heart and of soul. I've seen in a way.
Okay, so is there a difference between your experiences growing up? I mean, we're doing this. I know a lot of people are noticing this paradigm shift. So, is there a difference between what you had as a wish as a child growing up and what you had this ideal of what life was? And again, we see this old system kind of dying out, and more people are becoming awakened, and more about what you're doing today, like in your life as an adult, as an occupation, or your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like transformed into different things. Like a lot of that work is just like not necessarily fallen away from me, or that it wouldn't serve me anything, but that a lot of those things I just sort of like put the focus into, instead of like a chess game here, I'm focused on like a sort of like a different form of doing that chess game, or finding a different method or methods to understand that, because like I can explain the whole spirit thing. Is spirits are just in all of us as beings. So if we make it peace with the next, like one for all or all for one, and we remain in that moment, we know how to like love one another in peace, or even in silence, even not even having to say that. Like love is something that is so it brings out everything of which it is not. It's truly something here that holds us together. And the spirits, there are many that see spirits in somewhat of nihilistic or pessimistic way, or like they say that, oh, it is they'll say like figures like Dark Ones, the Dark Brotherhood, like, or Satan or Lucifer, like rebellion, that they are controlling the world. But we're mistaken, because we know that love, and we know that the sources of these things are infinite and cannot be measured. So if the devil's in the details, then he's fucking up. Excuse my language. Like it's all. I mean, we all have the details, but you can't get lost, because then you can sort of drift away. Sometimes uncertainty with that. So like I go at ease with it. Like I don't like I don't communicate with spirits in a way that many, like, I do it through music. I like in sharing community, or just like even like taking a walk outside, or going in the woods, or whatever it is, cultivating, breathing, just like those things alone are like I'm connected to, like even this is going to be expensive, but like if I walk through the woods, I feel like I'm connected to the spirit of the tree, the spirit of the grass and the ground that I'm walking on, and the stream that's flowing, and I can hear and feel that like move, and the birds chirping in the tree, like just little adorable birds, like that's what I try to embody that, to help embrace it and not be so abrasive of it, because that sometimes when people have hard experiences with spirits here, or they have difficult experiences with like that divinity, they sometimes get like scared a little bit and jump away, like, whoa, what's going on? And sometimes it can produce panic or anxiety or even psychosis. I've seen that a lot. That
Yes.
people that deal with that is like they get sucked into those things. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is, I mean, we're all frequency in a way. We're vibration frequency. Even our molecules are vibration frequency. But we have emotions, which are energy motions or emotions. Like I say, anger, when a person gets angry in a biological sense, your usually heart rate goes up, that's friction in your blood. That is actual friction vibrational energy that is going out. So in a way, the way this construct we are in, this reality space, your thoughts manifest, your emotions manifest because your emotions are part of thoughts. And where spirit realm, and I've had my own share of spirit realm activity. It's almost like the way I described it as being on a different radio station, a different frequency. Is that something that you experience? Almost like how you have you used the spirit box? It's the same thing where they scan all the frequencies on the radio.
Yeah, that's perfect though. That's great. Yeah, like it reminds me of the Metallica song where he's like, "Oh, do you remember the code? Do you remember the telephone wire they used to string up?" And he asks, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh God, yeah." Um, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean.
So, okay. So in that frequency, I mean, so we're talking about what you have. I mean, you have seen spirits. Have you seen spirits, or do you actually see them in third eye, or you just clairaudient? Do you hear them?
It's been a mixture. There'd be times when, like, I don't hear them audibly in a sense where, like, I don't hear like my voice is the only voice that I hear inside of myself, even surrounded by like, many. If I were to be surrounded, if I was in a group, I would do my, I mean, I might, you know what I mean? It's not that I'm not listening to people, but that, that's where I think that's where the whole phenomena goes of people that deal with those loops or the psychosis. They go on about those voices and they might actually be experiencing something that's profound, but they don't know how to necessarily construct it or to understand it in a way, and it creates like a blockage. So we just have to, like, when we have those experiences, we sort of need to stabilize it in our heart source, in our solar plexus. Because like you said, when that rage and when these like strong emotions and anxiety, we can feel it in our chest, and it stirs, and then it like spreads to the rest of the body, and then you could feel it shoot down your legs, down to your feet, and in your arms. That pain, and that's why I sort of like go with the Western idea of like it's not a nothingness. I would say, right? It's not a nullness, but it's like a I viewed it in myself. I treated it as that, like the day is the day,
Yes.
and the day passes by, and everything that comes into that day, I'm not worrying about why, or what is happening, but I'm doing my best to deal with that why and to deal with what is happening my best I can. Whether it's work or anything, or and that's how I treat this experience in a way.
Staying in the now. I mean, it's ultimately what we are here to learn how to control is ourselves. So staying calm in a situation, but also, like you said, going with the heart space in a situation and going with that first. Understanding is one of the best ways to treat any situation that is being thrown at us. To look at it as outside of our feelings, because sometimes, and okay, so that may be something. Do you feel more empathic on, say, the collective energies that are going around? Do you feel the emotions that people have in this collective?
Yeah. It's the best I can share. It's like interconnected. It feels like at times interconnected, shared experiences. Like when I look at the like the planets and the zodiac, the zodiacs, uh, the systems. They're all like sort of linked to each other,
Yes.
and when we step into that, in a way, we sort of understand things in a more objective way, and it helps us not be so subjective of our ideas and to like enforce those in any way. It helps us sort of like transform that. So like I understand emotional intelligence is very crucial here for spirit or for soul to sort of understand the experience and to go through that duality of like the light and the dark and what those characteristics can be. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to go back on something.
That's all right. It's okay. So, okay, so what do you practice any routines or meditation? You just said music and you're going outside and just connecting in the now. Do you have a regular practice or are you more into the flowing stage?
I would say a mixture. Again, it's like the practices that I do are like a space between breath, like maybe perhaps sages and crystals and geodes and dirt and water and all that. Just different elements of that, and I would say that helps to fulfill the whole experience in a way, but not that tradition I see, or that the tribal instincts, the base mode, the base modules, I like to say, are necessary for the whole, but that it helps to fulfill the whole in a way. Like when people do tarot and divination and use crystals, or they use even psychedelics, even to some matter, it's sort of like frequency tool, yes, measurement tool, or like utility. It's like the utility of the soul in a way of our experience. So I would say I would even say I would even argue that the Bible, the Quran, the Book of Enoch, Why Am I So Clever by Friedrich Nietzsche. You got Jung, we got Alan Watts. I would say a lot of these individuals, they touch on a lot of the objective experience in a way, and we pick up the pieces of that. It's sort of like, I don't know if you there's a song from Tool, from a rock band called Tool. It's called Schism. Yeah, it's like like the schism of our communication as being like encompasses the whole, and when we miscommunicate in ourselves, we sort of divide what we got here, or at least in our world we do. But anyway.
So actually it's some of what we touch on here is communication, and there's a lot of ways that communication, even in the human language, and especially with what words we use, because we aren't, again, it's a spoken spell, we actually manifest what we're speaking as well, and our thoughts manifest. So using certain words to not create an anxiety on somebody, because people who are either newly awakened, and a lot of people that aren't, or still in this, I guess we'd say, old paradigm system, they create that like they need on certain things. And actually I'm going to touch on that. So what is your thoughts on the current world system that we're in, and where do you think that it's going to be turning to?
It feels like man is reaching through like the man and woman is reaching through like the democracies, the republics, the communist fascists, like all these different facets of this same structure that they have created of the monetary systems. And it sort of follows up with the monotheistic, the mono and the monetary have a quite a similarity in its assimilation. It's like capitalism has the same facets as the West does, the East and the West, but that the East sort of there's a development of structural freedom and I suppose free speech. So there is much that was separated when the Europeans came over here. But to be fair, this land was also invaded, and it's like I call it like the settled development over the world's history. Is that the migration of the governments and the monetary systems, the democracies, the republics has in turn, it also has imprisoned.
Yes.
And it's controlled the land, the sky, the resources, and the people have to sort of survive to feed that or to help sustain that in a way. So it has, the bull and the eagle, or the east west or north south. They all have quite the similarities in their governments. Some, of course, are quite brutal with their tyranny, or they might just at a whim go at war and really really threaten their citizens or the lives of women and children and so on, over just ideals and money and whatnot. So they've really, and on top of that, their weapons and their nuclear weapons, that they're harnessing. I mean, hey, they definitely have driven themselves. They've definitely driven their the Bolsheviks, or to the Nazis, the Nazi Party, and then you got and honestly, like a lot of the Germans, a lot of that Germans were from Rome. It went from Rome to Germans, and then ultimately really to America. Yeah. America is really that. Some form.
Yes. The symbolism is there. Yes, I'm very much aware of that from Rome. I mean, you could just follow the eagle symbol if you're just looking at that particular aspect of it. So what is your take on, because again, I see that the way the systems are, the government systems, the medical systems, even the money system is kind of just one big machine. Do you take on that as something that you observe as well, or do you see something that is a bit different?
So there's been things that many have touched on over the years, like even perhaps decades or centuries of like the whole word conspiracy. That word right there, you just slap whatever on it. And anyways, when we sift through all the different things, over the years, some of it, is very loud and clear. Some of it might sound quite cynical or quite, cryptic at the same time. But there are familiar patterns here with what is going on. Because if like we mentioned earlier, these timestamps, is that like if you were to able to condition and to enforce ideals enough for long in generations of beings, you would actually build it into the genetics and into the DNA, because the trauma would and the trauma, the happiness, like all the strong emotions that drive us, they like trigger in a way. And people do it. Some people do it subconsciously. They'll say like, "Oh, Jesus Christ," or "Gee damn," they'll say it subconsciously. Even off strong emotions, or they'll. So some of the like innate like brokenness of that language, or the schism of the language, it comes out in these forms and creates division in a way. So like I see that. I don't see that the world is necessarily controlled by just the money, or by like these men and women in suits, and even the ones involved in very very taboo forms of business, and taboo forms of controlling the system in a way. The media is connected to the oil companies are connected to the banks, and the banks connected to the real estate and the housing properties. Oh yeah, indeed, and so on and so forth.
It's basically and I've talked about this before. It's like a machine. So each piece of it, and a lot of it, and that's where I was asking on that collective is, in this sense, this fear base, which again would be the root chakra, and what you were talking about is going back to the heart space. And a lot of these, again, the schism with language, when we say that, like, a lot of times I don't use the word need, because there's things that are requirements, like food and water for a person, but saying I need that car creates the dependency to go out and get money, or I need money, and then to have that all lifted off, everything lifted off, is kind of what we go back to our core space as a human being, a human avatar, human body. What's in your core? So a lot of times I'll ask that, like, what's your passion in life? Like, what is the thing that drives you? If you had no worries about money or any of that at all, what would drive Gent?
Mm. I would say love. I mean, that's it, uh, it, it's a very expensive thing. I know, like just that word alone, but really, like, there's so many things that I could think about, like getting in that think tank, like think about doing, but it feels so innate to bring back like this source of something of which I know, but of which I simply could not like share in a way. It sounds hard to describe. It's like it's like listening to like sometimes a guy in the street that lives in the street and people are walking by. They're like, "Oh, he sounds crazy," but sometimes that guy in the street could be, saying something for sure, and some people just wouldn't even see it. So it brings it down to that in a way where like we just don't share. It's almost like I don't have the words for it necessarily.
So is it you wanting
Yeah.
to connect people in a way to show them what love is, like unconditional love, the act of that in your heart?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be more
It's,
of like your
yeah,
passion.
yeah.
I mean, and I was saying just because, like, for myself, it's more of the helping people, teaching people, but also my passion is to paint. So I ask people, like, do you do music? What is it that sings to your soul that makes you like want to go out and just dance like nobody's looking, or like everybody's watching? But yeah, so more of you resonating out, I would say, that just that's saving space.
Yeah, that's
So I'll ask,
mm.
have you done any? A lot of people talk about, like you said, the duality, but you haven't done any shadow work on yourself and to heal any inner wounds that you, like you were sharing in the beginning. And what do you have any practices for that? A lot of people isolate, some people don't.
Yeah, I view the like unconscious to be a mix. It's a few different things, but right away it bangs like unconscious in a way, but also not necessarily purely in a state of like unknowing, but that it feels as if it's like a void of time or experience or being. And I looked at the way that this manifests um, through psychology, through religion, through secular, and through the occult. Essentially, especially the occult, especially touches on it because they're on the left hand path of magic, which just means they're just doing like service to self or individuality, where they're just going to do whatever they want at any cost, which has a very costly thing to it. I might add, going that sort of route in this world because that's sort of what's already going on. So we're just using everything at any cost without any care to it.
Mm-hmm.
So like this shadow work, I see that it is necessary for every soul to be like was this like God throwing me into like a sea abyss, and when I it's like reading it almost like I felt when I was reading Lovecraft through, and I got to a certain section where he said something, and I was like, oh, I had had a certain experience with that, and I felt this somewhat of the same way. It's like God just like threw me right into that water.
Mm-hmm.
And showed me, hey, this is the flow. This is the flow. Don't be afraid of the flow. That water is flowing, and it needs to move and just move through it. And don't get pulled down to that abyss that lies like, infinitely. That's what I felt in my spirit throughout like all of those things. Just looking at what they say about Satan, what man feels when he feels like the cosmic horrors or the malice of the soul. Like I look through how it manifests in like schizophrenia, paranoia, psychosis, sociopaths. I've looked at just the way that has. It's like a nameless. It's like a nameless name and a faceless face.
So is it? Do you see
yeah.
that's where, like in the medical system, that I mean, like I said, a lot of people are waking up, and a lot of them are getting diagnosed with this bipolar schizophrenia, and some of them are just dealing with basically spiritual experiences. Do you see that there's a split even in the medical system in that way?
Yeah, like I've seen that. I used to work in. I actually used to work in medical field. I was only an assistant, basically a personal assistant to somebody that needed to be taken care of. But I had over the years, as well as my mom, she works in she's working there for about 30 years, that field. And so I've seen the way that like our structure of our government and even other countries, how they treat, especially the countries, but anyways, America, how we sort of and even some of the employees, of course, they're separate from the establishment. But anyways, we see the way the system does is, medication, and we're going to take your pet, but we're going to throw you inside of a building, and, you might end up getting treated like shit until you die. And that's, in that case, but then there's also, Star Children, the Pleiadians, Lemurian, like all these reptilians, the different, and then also what really is opening up the door is autism specifically. That is really, man needs to get on that and understand that, and not fight with it, because the more I understand it, the more they will see that these are like abilities that these people have in a way. They're not disabilities the way that they perceive it. So I do see that the paranoia and the bipolar that we're talking about, the schizophrenia, like the way the splits is that like we need to have the medical, and that we need to be able to implement the understandings of consciousness or human consciousness, the spirit, and in different fields of not only medicine but medicine of the soul. And then I need to stop forcing these compounds and these chemicals that are made in labs. We need to start tapping into the nature of our medicine and the nature of us. And the further that they go against that and they misunderstand that, they're going to continue to traumatize and to tear these beings apart, essentially.
I agree. So what do you see and envision as manifesting as a future? Do you see, I mean, and we are in that, like this collective, and again, I get what you're saying about being in the now. A lot of times I don't watch the news and such. It'll whatever appears is that's what I'm looking at. But what do you see for a kind of world where you envision manifesting?
It feels as if there's going to be necessary stages of like release and letting go of some of the things like here in us, and that we in our sight of that, or in our like focus of that, we find sort of our own niche, or there's sort of like a implied or a slight amount of fate tied in with the destiny, in a way that we are all in some way in the shared experience in space and time, but that we all have different unique points or systems in the vastness beyond, or in the stars. And it's I see it as a collective infantilization that this will return to, and not just the singularity as many are calling for, as with this AI and with this like rapid opening of the stargates. And what I mean by that is just how many like psychics, mediums, and like younger people are having abilities to different sights and senses, and how we're seeing that manifest in our world. And so we know that this there's been massive shifts in trauma, but then also in the creativity and in the will, in the heart spirit or in the child spirit, and that when those things collide, when sort of the singularity or the hope, the utilitarian utopia or whatever it is that many are envisioning to see through their politics and through their governments and through their technology, that eventually they will reach a overthrow point, or like a rebellion point where innately the system falls, or the tower falls, and then a new tower is assimilated in a way. So I mean, to be fair, most of my dreams that I've had, most of my visions that I've had over the years, that if you want to say that God or universe or soul was showing me, was that around the corner perhaps it was the way that I was constructing it. Again, I would like to go with that, but that it was going to get a little out of hand, essentially. And I don't want to necessarily describe what I mean by that, because I don't want to dampen the the mood of the moment. But a lot of my experiences with that, so I've done my best to not fight against that, but also to work with that and to keep that in knowing, to keep that, those experiences of that, and then to be able to envision something greater than that, and that anything at any cost that I can do to be able to get to that, and it's sort of like, in a way, the universe that God sets up like things on purpose as a wall so that you break through it. But then we don't really see that. We don't really see that other side necessarily until the right time comes. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's okay. Well, I mean, you talked about visions. Do you have a lot of visions still? Do you dream in that space? How do you view even the dream space?
I see it. I do see it as an out of body extension. It's like an extension of our being, in a way. It's an extension of our conscious, where it, like, the conscious space is able to frame the sight of that. But then also, what I found is interesting is that I've had external forces come inside of my dreams that I was not in control of. I was in control of everything. I was in control of the landscape and what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden something else comes in and takes over. And there's been I've seen one figure in particular out of the many that is like a woman, essentially. And I've had this particular woman for 5 or 6 years in a row. I haven't had a dream with this particular figure in those years, but there was a span of 5 to 6 years where I just had so many of the same person. And the first one that I had with her, I was in every setting context of this dream, I might add, is in the house that I'm living in, and I'm able to view my body essentially while I'm sleeping, while my body's sleeping. The first dream that I had, I got up, I woke, and I looked down and saw myself sleeping. And I went to the kitchen and I sat down. I was having dinner with my father, talking about some stuff going on, and then all of a sudden he just disappears and he's just gone. And all the lights sort of blow out, and then there's a woman sitting right in the chair as the lights turn back on, and I'm like, oh hey, what is going on, and because I didn't recognize, I had never seen somebody like that, because they say that dreams you recognize the faces, but I've never seen a face like that.
Okay.
And which is interesting, and which is something that I'll add on to a little bit after, is that all of a sudden there was a couple books in front of me. One of them was the Bible, and another one was I didn't recognize the other book, but it had different text, but I could actually read what was in the Bible, but the other book. And she didn't say anything at all, And I was like, oh, hey, what is going on here? And she just like grabbed the books and was like ripping the pages out. And it was just like tearing and ripping it out. I was like, oh, this is, I didn't react like negatively to it. But then after she was done with that, she was like mentioning like my family members. She was telling me about people that she knew in my life, which was people family and friends that I had known. And then it just sort of ended. And that was interesting is I had that dream around the time that I was doing parapsychology and I was in the church when I was doing a little bit of both. Is that I was having these dreams of this particular entity or woman or whatever you want to say in dream state. And she was able to sort of bring me out of that experience and to change that experience. Like there was when I was in my ex's house that I was living when we were living in. I had another dream with her that she had come out and I was out of body again. And then the next two places that I was living at, my next two apartments leading up to now, I had a dream in every single one that I would wake up out of my body and that she would come inside my house from somewhere. It would be from some doorway or from some entryway. Mm-hmm. And she's not the only being. I've had dreams of like gray aliens and like I was running on a road really fast, like in cartoons, how, like Roadrunner, Sonic or something, he's just like running I was running like extremely fast. And then I was just stopped immediately. I was just whoop, like a warp bubble just hit me. And I turn around and it's just like a classic, like 3 foot, 3.5 feet, like almond shaped eyes, huge head, like shiny skin. It looked like I had no bones, though. It looked like I had no bones, which just sounds silly to say, but it looked like I had no bones. And it just stopped. And I just, and like I froze and it froze and nothing was said. And then I wake up immediately and I was like sweating. I was like, shit. I said to myself, I was like, what was that? Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen Dreamcatcher by Stephen King?
I know the story, but no, I haven't seen it. I know a little bit.
The movie is the book is great though. Yeah, that movie right there. That Stephen King or that book that he wrote about that touches on exactly what I just said. With my experiences with like, I've just had like, anywhere from beautiful to like transient to like cosmic horrors in my dreams. Like it's either, and I'm like caught in between, and I'm like stabilizing it. I'm like, it's okay, low, So it's like it's definitely a wide spectrum of experiences, and I never chose to write a book necessarily right away or go and tell my experiences, like run off like like Paul Revere, like the messenger running to, hey, low and to and from a hole. I never really have done that in my life. I've usually just kept things like, it's like I don't see it as a code or honor necessarily. I don't attach like things like that to it necessarily, but I like it's in respect to my experience and others' experience. I don't want to share something to somebody else that they might not be
right.
That they might not have had direct experience of, because that could mess with somebody's experience or their life or whatever the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. I understand. So before I wrap this up, is there anything that you want to say to people out there that may be just coming into this or even experiencing paranormal or anything about yourself?
I would say do your best to incorporate as many fields of understanding as you can objectively, but in a way where not being let off on too much. There's a lot of things out there essentially, and I would say the majority of it, a lot of it has quite similar characteristics in its nature, whether it be a purely mental or physical or of spirit. The correlations are there, whether it's in religion or the psychology or the occult, the trinity of that, of understanding the science, the Tower of Babylon, the Tower of Spirit, and then the Tower of Matter. Mm-hmm. And so we sort of find a ways to be objective about this and to be able to be a bit neutral in a way, not like what I mean is that treat every experience as if it's something new and objective in a way.
Right.
Yeah. Like polarity, the things that the paradox, the paradigms that come along with that. Like, be willing and be flexible to be able to go from that point A to point B, or from that that line, or the symmetry, or the whatever it is that you're doing, the art or the geometry, the dance, whatever it is. Just be yeah. Go with the flow. The flow is really necessary, because we sometimes hold on to things very tightly, and then when we release it, sometimes it could be a little tough for us in ourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely, and it will also unlock like a lot of knowledge. Rumi said it was Sufism. He was a poet in a way, or a philosopher. He said, "The knowledge it is to a complete burning, and it is to return to the emptiness, to absorb that sound and that light and that dust and rock and energy and all of that." And it encompasses the whole. And when we see that compass in a way, that is the whole, and we find that the pieces here, that we are embodying them, that we are expressing them, that we are we could say searching or uncovering them, searching to uncover, seek to find. As many have come along, in the world, they receive like this fountain, or this
Mhm.
stone, or this particular thing, or this specific god, or whatever it may be that we've externalized here. We're experiencing all of these externalities, and we only this experience beyond. I mean, we see this for what it is, and we embrace this for what it is. Many would like to say, "Oh, I can't wait for my soul family to come take me," or, "Oh, I can't wait for God to come and rapture people, or to like annihilate people." They'll say all so many different things, but it's like, why don't you guys just see this experience and just breathe it in while you have it?
Just be.
Because that, yeah, like, come on, people. But
Yes.
yeah, we are really in a you're really in a sea of emotion, a sea of experience, and that it's right up and down, So be willing to go, be willing to go on that motion, yeah.
Well, I thank you for telling parts of your story, or telling your story on Storytime on the podcast. You are welcome back to have further discussions, or anything like that. We may be doing group ones if anyone's interested. So, and I enjoyed this. So it's nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise. This was lovely. Just a time to be able to, dive a little bit further into the nitty gritty that
Yeah.
a lot of us have been experiencing recently. So
All right.
this is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.